It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, June 22nd, and so happy for you joining us today. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Sermons in the Sky, QNA Thursday, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And I hope you really enjoyed your Wednesday service last night. It's already Thursday, and I am so happy and thankful it is Thursday. It's like what the week is winding down. It's almost over. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like or a comment. Let's build this community together. Really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. All right, so Thursday, man. I don't know. For you guys, Thursday for me is awesome. It's probably the best. Like, it feels like it's the best day of the week for me, because like that's the beginning of my weekend. Because I always make the podcast. Well, because I'm in a different time zone, my podcasts are always done like 2 hours, an hour, maybe an hour before it actually comes out. So it's almost like in real time, except I'm in a different time zone, so it's the day before. So Thursday is awesome. Because Thursday, by 2:30 p.m. on Thursday for me, I am done my podcast for the entire week and my weekend begins. And for me, that's just exciting. Thursday's exciting for me because it's just last episode, gotta make it, and I'm done. And I consider it a super weekend. Not just a regular weekend, because my weekend is Friday, Saturday, where everyone else is Saturday, Sunday. However, Sunday is not really a day off. Sunday is like the Sabbath. It's the day you spend with God. It's the day you go to church and everything else like that. So everyone, like, their Sunday is not really like a rest day. For me, I have my Sundays. However, I have Friday and Saturday off, which means I feel like I have an extra day off. So I'm not bragging or anything. Just telling you guys it feels good to have an extra day off. But then again, on Sundays I do go back to work. Like on Sundays I do service, and then I have to make my podcast on Sundays for the Monday podcast in Asia. So either way, so it's not as it's not as a free day as I think it is, but it just feels that way, if anything else, right? You know what? I am still having dreams almost every night. Tell me that's weird. I'm having dreams almost every single night. Like this morning, I was with another pastor, and we were doing interviews of members. And it's crazy, guys. In this dream, we're interviewing members, and we are searching for people who committed the fall. Tell me that's weird. Like, people are coming into the room, we're interviewing them so we can figure out who committed the fall. And in my dream, there's one person that came in the room. In the dream, I knew this person as a member. I knew this person. But in the real world, it's no one I know here. It's no one I know in the world itself, right? In this physical realm. But in my dream, it was like, oh, I know this person. Oh, this is a member kind of thing. And, we were just talking like we knew each other kind of thing, right? So it was just a strange dream. I already texted the other pastor I was with. And I was just like, man, what a crazy dream. So I'm having these types of dreams. I'm not sure if it's true or not. It's nothing on my side, because on my side, I am not even connected to a church really over here, right? So I talked to my friend who's also a pastor in a different church, and I was like, hey, is this does this have any significance? And in my head, I'm like, I hope not, because it's not a good thing for this type of thing, anyways, right? So yeah, I've been having these dreams almost every night. Sometimes I just don't even talk about it on the podcast, but yeah, because I forget it. But when I wake up, I'm like, whoa, that's a crazy dream kind of thing. So it almost feels like it's a very, very spiritual time right now, right? It feels like it's a spiritual time. And I hope, for me, I just hope it's, I really feel it's like God trying to talk to me. And God wants to talk to me. God wants to tell me things like, Sky, come to your senses, you moron, kind of thing like that. But I was just like, interesting. So let's see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but we'll see what it means a little bit later, right? And you know what? Lately, you guys got to tell me if you feel like this right now too. Okay, like right now, at this moment in time, I feel like not Providence, but in general, it's like in a lull, like we're drifting. You know, we finished the prayer condition. We just had all that chaos in March. The chaos is, simmering down. We're not hearing much of the news. And it just feels like we're waiting for the next thing to happen. Am I the only one that feels this way? Like, I feel like it's either we're waiting instruction or we're waiting for the next bad thing or the next crazy thing to happen, or we're just trying to figure out the next step. But it just feels like we're drifting, and it's very, very interesting because maybe it's because I'm a sports person and right now is like the lowest time in sports, meaning almost everything is done. It's like we're just started baseball, which I'm not a huge baseball fan. Soccer is finished, basketball's finished, ice hockey's finished. NFL doesn't start for like another month. So it's kind of like in sports too, it's kind of this dead time. It's really a dead time. So, but I'm feeling like this is what it kind of feels like in just in this history right now. Do you guys get that feeling? Because that's my feeling right now. I'm just like, wait, is it just me thinking this? It just feels like we're drifting a little bit. Either way. So it's something that I was just thinking about, like, oh, that's interesting. And this is what I feel like right now. It could just be me, but let me know if you guys feel something like this too. Right? Just let me know if you guys feel something like this too. So that's something that's kind of in my mind, like, oh, wonder what's going on. Like, what's happening? Like, what are we going to do kind of thing? Everyone's kind of just in wait mode. Also, just recently, right? I there's a situation, okay? Have you ever been in a situation where you feel that the people you knew have changed? Like you were close before, and then all of a sudden, you're no longer close anymore. You guys ever felt that? Like you're not really sure what happened. Something might have happened, right? And things change quickly. We don't know. It doesn't feel good, right? Because it's like, oh, I thought we were close kind of thing. But I also know that, we've had a pandemic, we've had chaos, we've had all these crazy things. People's minds are a little bit different than before. And I shouldn't be shocked by it. It should be understandable because of all the things that have happened and people's minds may have changed, right? And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, how should I react to this? And in my head, I was like, well, you know what? What's the best reaction? No matter how sad I am by the situation, if anything, I should be super understanding, right? And if this is someone that you were close to, or it might just be them going through something, we just got to trust those people we're close to. Rather than those that we are not close to, right? Like I've seen this happen before where people cut off friendships or relationships because someone they are not close to tells them something that the person they are close to said or did, and then that person just cuts their friend off because they were so upset. But when I think about this too, it's like, well, reality is if you have someone you're close to, and even if other people you're not as close to say things like, oh, this person said this about you, they said this or this or this, or they did this against you kind of thing, or they even try to show you some type of proof, you should actually still trust the one you are closer to first. Ask them, talk to them, confirm. There's tons of different reasons and things why certain things happen, right? And as people who are close, we should be even more understanding rather than going off on an emotional reaction because someone you aren't as close to said something or tried to tell you that this person who's supposed to be close to you did something bad to you or whatever or whatnot. And I think it has to do, this type of thing has to do with what's happening right now. It's kind of close to, it's like kind of parallel of the things that are happening right now in Providence also, right? Like if you look at the chaos, right? The chaos is based on what people are accusing and what they said, right? And then people get emotional and react and say things and think things without giving the benefit of the doubt to the one you love and are closer to, and which we're talking about is Sunsteam too, right? So if I was thinking about this, like I was doing the mental exercises, let's pretend this chaos didn't happen. There's no Netflix with KJS, she's still AJ, whatever it is. Let's imagine zero. None of that happened. Zero. Okay? Let's say none of these things happened and it's, things are normal. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone makes an accusation without the Netflix documentary, without KJS, without these people leaving. All these are different things. If none of these things happened and someone made an accusation, would you just cut all things off and then turn away from your faith? And the answer is probably not, right? Like, I know Julius. I've been getting to know Julius even more these days. And if I'm close to Julius and then someone else starts telling me about all the things Julius said about me, who would I trust? And why wouldn't I check with Julius since I'm close to him rather than the person who's telling me? And I think sometimes we look at things in such a way, like we look at things in a certain way that sometimes we get so emotional. Some of these things would never happen in other situations, but right now, because it's so chaotic and so confusing, that we're making these decisions we would never make normally. Right? And for me, I think one of the things that to keep ourselves really based, to keep ourselves really have a good foundation is we need to trust the people we really trust. Right? And, I have to compare the trust for myself. Like this is personally just for me is no matter how close I am to a certain person too, like there's some people that I'm close to and they'll say, like I told you guys before at the very beginning, someone I was really, really close to was one of the first to accuse and start trying to get me on the other side. But no matter how close I am to this person, it's nothing close to, what I feel, what I know, like the relationship between me and God. I couldn't even compare it. Right? To me and Jesus, right? To me and the man of mission. It just can't. It's too far apart. And for me to just trust everything that someone else said, even though they're close to me, they're not close enough to override what I think of God, the Holy Spirit, to think of Jesus, think of the man of mission. It's just not enough, right? And until the end, right? I'm not sitting here waiting. Like I kind of, I talked about this, just above here is like, are we just waiting? Right? And I think that, I was thinking about this because, I'm always going through certain experiences and such. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of true. There's a lot of times if we get too emotional about a certain situation or we get caught up in something, we eventually end up making decisions that we never would have made before. Impossible to make before. So I do think that's something that we have to think about is sometimes we need to isolate an incident. I talked a little bit about this yesterday too, is if none of these other things were happening, would you still react the same way? And the answer is probably not, right? If you isolate the incident, like I talked yesterday, the day before, I talked about money embezzlement that's happening. This trial of money embezzlement with KJS, right? It would be huge news if we isolated and nothing else was going on. We'd be like, what the heck is going on? I can't believe this is happening. And we would actually be getting into it, and that would be huge news. But because there is the other stuff that's even crazier going on, the money embezzlement thing is not as big of a situation. But I think we need to learn how to isolate a situation, right? No matter what happens, yes, if there's more, like, haven't you guys ever had it where you've had a friend and they totally snap at you. They say terrible things about you. And then you're really upset. But then later you find out their parents just got divorced and they lost all their money or this, and this, and terrible things were happening in their life. And we're like, oh my gosh, I totally understand why they're going through this, right? So one thing we do know about human beings is we allow things to seep into other parts of our life. And this kind of one of the, it's actually one of the things Sunseam talks about when it comes to the story of Peter and the fish. Yeah, and I think this is a very, very deep, Sunseam called it spilling the cup of Shimjung. You're like, what the heck does that mean? Well, what that means is, the cup of Shimjung is that cup of suffering, right? What does it mean to spill? So in the story of Peter and the fish, there comes a point where Peter's fishing all day, and then he catches zero. He catches nothing. So he's in a terrible mood. So then he has a cup of Shimjung of not being able to feed his family, not making any money, even though he spent hours and hours and hours in the lake, right? When he comes off, he's washing his net. He's in a bad mood. Jesus comes and said, let me borrow the boat, right? Now, spilling the cup of Shimjung is, imagine if Peter was affected by his bad day. And he's like, go get another boat, Jesus. Oh, Jesus Christ. Imagine he says that. Jesus Christ. He'd be like, get another boat. I've been fishing all day and I haven't caught a single thing. So what happens is your cup of suffering, your cup of shimjung has spilled into the next situation. And the one thing that Peter did really well was he didn't spill it. Even though he's in a bad mood, even though he didn't catch a single thing, when Jesus came, he said, sure, go ahead. And Jesus is like, oh, by the way, push my boat out too, right? You'd be like, first he borrows my boat, now he tells me, it's kind of like he doesn't spill his shimjung, the cup of shimjung, into the next situation. Right? And, we understand when people are going through really terrible things, we begin to have the understanding heart like, wow, they just went through all this. Yeah, I understand why they're in a bad mood kind of thing, right? And we are more forgiving when we understand the people's situation, right? But in the same way too, we have to be able to really exercise control of ourselves that we don't spill our shimjung into the next situation. Because the moment you spill it over, then people who don't deserve it are being totally lambasted and rebuked and it's just kind of like, oh, like they totally didn't deserve that. But it's because people are so stressed and going through other things and they couldn't separate the cup. They couldn't keep the cup of shimjung inside, but they spilled it into the next situation. So I think that's something we really need to work on is, we're going to have good days and bad days, but usually the next person in the situation who's very innocent doesn't deserve for you to totally get into them, right? So I hope it's something that all of us can work on and think about all the situations that are happening right now and try to isolate each of them one by one. All right? Either way. So let me do my coffee tip for today. I'll do my coffee. I like these coffee tips. If you guys don't like this coffee tips, just let me know, and I'll stop doing these coffee tips. But I like coffee tips, right? But if you don't like it, I won't do it anymore. But I have my next coffee tip for you guys. When you go to a cafe, if you want to know a really, really good cafe, it's about the equipment. It's about the equipment. I'm dead serious, guys. Espresso machine, I'm going to give you the very, very basics of all espresso machines is never go to a cafe that has a super automatic espresso machine. What's super automatic? It means you just press a button and then it grinds and it puts it in and then it makes the espresso for you with the push of one button. And you're like, yeah, if you ever see those, run away. It is not good coffee. Now, of course, if you have it at home, it's completely different because, no one's an expert at home. The one thing good about super automatic machines, though, is it is extremely consistent. You're going to get the same flavor every time. If it's crap, you're going to keep getting crap, right? But, when it comes to going to a cafe, you're paying money for it. Definitely, you got to have those machines that has a semi-automatic, the semi-automatic machine, which means that, they have that scoop and they put the grind in it and then they tamp it down and then they put it in the machine. They press a button for the water to come through. That's the machine you want in there. And of course, there's tons of different machines out there, but look at the equipment and I'll tell you how extreme it gets. You're going to find some places, if you want to know really, really good coffee, they're the ones that have these really, really big, nice grinders. And when they put the grind into that, that scoop where they put all the grinds into for the espresso machine, they're going to measure how much of the grind is in there. They're going to have a weight scale to show them, oh, this is how much you put in. And they have machines to tamp it down, so it's always, if the more of these types of machines, weighing it and all these other different things they have, the better, the better the cafe is most likely going to be, because it means they're investing more into their cafe, right? Which means they're going to have a semi-automatic machine, they're going to have a separate grinder, and those two are great. To make it even more equipment, which makes it even super, they're actually putting money in, is if they're measuring how much coffee grind goes into that into the scoop. And even better is if they have a machine that tamps it for them and is always going to be the same level of tamping, right? So those are a couple things that you could take a look at, and this equipment kind of gives you an idea of how much they're invested into coffee, right? So the more of these machines, the better, right? The most usually it's just a semi-automatic machine with the grinder, and then that's it. Everything else is done by hand. However, if they have the weight scale And if they have the thing that tamps down for you, like a machine, that's, you know that they're really serious about their coffee. And of course, if they have a roasting machine in there, they're even more serious. Either way. All right, so that's my coffee tip of the day. Hope it's something that you guys really benefit and gain from. I'm not sure if you benefit from it, unless you really like coffee or getting into coffee, but that's my coffee tip for the day. Either way, so just hoping everyone keep your spirits high, keep encouraging each other, keep helping each other out in all situations. We're halfway through the year. Right? But think about it. We're already June 22nd. We're at the end of the month. We're hitting the last half. In golf, we call it the back nine, right? We're hitting the back nine. We're going to finish this year really strong. And of course, remember, December's not included in the year for us. It's the month of judgment, whatever, anything else. So if we're going all the way until November, we're way past the halfway mark. Way past the halfway mark. We're already in the back nine right now. So everyone, keep your head up, keep your spirits high, keep encouraging, keep praying, keep helping each other. And if you have any questions or anything else, like for next week too, because we have Q&A after this first break, go ahead, keep sending your questions in too. I'm really, really looking forward to chatting with you guys also. All right, so let's get into the first break for the day.
Just by brushing by. But if skin brushes skin, will they just merely connect? That will make them turn into lovers. If clothing brushes clothes, it could last for 10 years. But if it's skin to skin, 100 years. If it's our hearts that touch them together,
All right, so let's get into today's Q&A Thursday. And of course, it's Thursday. So every Thursday we do have questions that come from the audience. And today we have two questions, and I hope that we can go over these step by step. The first one is a question about Jesus' first miracle is from John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, is when Jesus turned water to wine. And the question is this a real miracle? And the answer is absolutely. When we say miracle can mean multiple things. So we'll say it's a sign, it's a real miracle. But the real question is, what kind of miracle? Is this a miracle of actual water turning to wine? or does it mean something else? Is it a parable for something else, right? So I think the key verse that we have to look at to understand this verse, to understand this situation, and what Sunseam has taught about this too, is in verses 2-4. Right, so Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine. Woman, why do you involve me?" I'm not sure why he would call his mom woman, but it says, "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." And of course, this miracle happens before he goes into the desert for 40 days, defeats Satan, and he gets baptized by John the Baptist. Right, so it's kind of like his ministry doesn't even have an official start yet. So what he does is he instructs the people to fill the jugs with water, and then he serves it to the guests. And then they're like, "Oh my gosh, usually people serve the best wine first and the cheap one last, but you have saved the best for last," right? So the first thing here is understanding that Jesus, his time had not yet come to start his ministry. Right? So we know that he didn't fast in the desert yet. He didn't get blessed or get baptized by John the Baptist, right? So what is the big question we're asking here is Jesus is telling his mother his time has not yet come. So we need to figure out what this possibly could mean. So if it's about doing an actual physical miracle of wine, the interesting thing about this story is very few people knew about it. Right? They didn't tell the master or the person who's, the bridegroom and the family that this came from Jesus, right? No one knew about it. They never said anything. Only the people that listened to Jesus were the ones that knew what actually happened. Everyone else had no idea what was going on. They just thought it was better wine. So if you think about this, it's like if it was real water to wine, these people who are, delivering it to the guests and to the family, wouldn't they freak out like, "Oh my goodness." And the rumors would spread. "Did you know what just happened? Jesus just turned water into wine." And people would be freaking out because it would be such a crazy miracle, right? And in the end of the story, it's just the people in the family and the wedding party. They're all just thinking, "Oh, it's better wine," right? They said, "Oh, this is so much better." So if we understand the difference between the physical miracles and the spiritual miracle of the word, and we know that we have learned that through the word that the most important thing is the word itself, because word is what gives us eternal life, right? So Jesus himself would not be revealed just by a miracle alone, right? That doesn't happen because there's many people in the world that do miracles, but just because you do a miracle doesn't make you the Messiah, right? So miracles come and go, but the word has lasted the last 2,000 years. Even at Jesus' time, many people that he healed, a lot of them didn't even end up following him. But who were the ones that recognized Jesus? It wasn't the ones that did the miracles. It was the ones that listened to the words of God, which means that what happened during that wedding is, you'll have like a rabbi or a priest giving the blessing or giving the word at the very beginning, right? The beginning and at the end. So there's these blessings that are giving, or the preaching of the word that's done at the beginning and near the end. And at this time, the second blessing or the second word that was delivered was given by Jesus. And then they said that the word was much better at the end than at the beginning. Right? So water and wine, if you think about it spiritually speaking, the parables, water and wine are both the symbolic, they're both parables for the words of God, right? And when you come to a wedding, you have to understand the symbolism of wine and how important wine is to a Jewish wedding also, because the wine actually symbolizes the cup of life, right? And this is what both the bridegroom and the bride partake in. Now, if you want to go even deeper into how important wine is at a wedding, it's very, very interesting because in Jewish tradition, right, wine is actually really closely associated with the Sabbath, right? Usually the Sabbath, right? So, when the holy day begins, people drink wine to usher in the spirit of sanctity. Right? And in Jewish, it's like the Kiddush, right? That sounds like what Kung Fu Panda, skidoosh, right? It's called Kiddush, right? And at the end of the day of the Sabbath, they close it with wine again. And that's the Havdalah, right? And what this accomplishes is a very significant task, meaning it marks the boundary lines and separates the holiness of the holy day from the secular character of the ordinary day, right? So at the beginning of the day, you drink the wine to separate it from a regular day. And at the end of the Sabbath, you drink it again to end that holy day, and it goes back into an ordinary day, right? So when you think about in a Jewish wedding, at the wedding, the wine symbolizes both Kiddush, for sanctity, and Havdalah, which is separation, as the blessing itself indicates, right? So that's how important the wine is. So especially at this time, this wine is about sanctity and separation, right? So this is, and that's why it's also, especially in a situation where it's a wedding, this is such a huge thing, right? So when wine is symbolized as the word, it is symbolized as something very valuable and important, and that's why you can symbolize the water turning to wine is the words at the beginning. The blessing given by the rabbi at the beginning was just the water, right? So it was at that level. But what Jesus did, he turned those words into wine, or made it into an even greater level. And everyone's like, whoa, this word is even that much better, right? So remember, wine is used as a threshold, right? Which meaning it's the line you cross over for the Sabbath, for sanctity, for separation, and it's also used as the threshold of marriage to separate it from the things you can't do, right? The sanctity, the bonds of proper marriage between two people, right? So it's something that we have to understand. It's that big and that important. That's why when you look at it in this way, you're like, oh, okay, so it's talking about the words, right? So if we kind of repeat back of what we're talking about at the very beginning we're talking about, water to wine, right? And if it was just regular wine, everyone would have talked about it, right? But if it's just words and these servants are listening to these words, and they may not even be religious because they're servants, they may not even be like really into the Jewish faith, and they'll just deliver it, right? And what happens is they're like, whoa, where did this come from? And the people who are Jewish would understand it way better, right? But the servants are like, oh, no, we don't know how great this is, right? But if it was literally water turned to wine, it would have spread like wildfire everywhere, right? And that's why Jesus says, hey, why do you, don't get me involved, woman. It's not my time yet, right? Not his time for what? It's the delivering of the word, right? That happens after the 40 days of fasting and after he gets baptized by John the Baptist, and then the mission begins kind of thing, right? So that's the... his time is not yet is more about delivering the words of God. Either way, right? So there's the first one. That's turning the water to wine. The second question is from Luke chapter 22, verse 35 to 38. I love it because these are all Bible questions, meaning people are reading the Bible, right? So Luke 22, verse 35 to 38, it says, then Jesus, this is during the Last Supper, when Jesus asked them, when I sent you without purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything? Nothing, the disciples answered. And then verse 36, Jesus says, but now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It is written, and he was numbered with the transgressors. And I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment. Right? So the question is, well, what does it actually mean here about this purse and bag and your sandals or whatever it is? Like you didn't lack, like what is Jesus saying here? So it is a very interesting verse, but let's first get into the context of the verse itself. So the context of this, the situation we're in right now is the Last Supper, right? It's the night before he's going to be taken away, right? Jesus is going to be betrayed by Judas Iscariot. He'll die on the cross. So he knows his end has come. So what is this situation talking about? So this is after, this is at the end of the Last Supper. And what Jesus says, in the past, right, before Jesus knew he was going to die, right, it was the path of glory, right? It was the path of glory. The Messiah had come. There was no imminent ending of death. They were still in the path of glory. Things were safe. And Jesus says, hey, did you lack anything back then? And the answer was no, right? Don't take your purse. Don't take your bag. Don't worry. People, if they accept you in, go into their house, preach the gospel. If they don't, wipe your feet and move on kind of thing, right? But then what does he say? His tone changes. He says, oh yeah, back then, I told you don't take any of those things, right? But then he says, what's his first two words? He says, but now, take your purse, take your bag, get a sword. And now he's proceeding to say the exact opposite. Back then, you didn't have to worry, but now you do. Why? Because the situation has changed and the Messiah was going to get killed. And not only that, as Jesus said, if they persecute me, they will persecute you. Everyone who is with Jesus will be persecuted and killed, just like almost every single disciple was. In the past, it was just about living the life of this history. It was a regular life of ministry. And yeah, people are going to reject you, and it's okay, just move on. But now, after he dies, the situation is completely turned upside down, and it won't be that easy. No one will invite you in. No one's going to feed you. No one will protect you. You got to keep your purse, your bag, whatever the money you have. And by all means, get a sword, right? Now, does that literally mean go get a sword because you're going to fight? And the answer is very, very few times you actually saw fighting actually happen, like with a sword too. But we know the sword is talking about the words of God, but it's also talking about fighting, right? Which means there's going to be fighting words. It's not just going to be about you sharing the gospel. People are going to react. They're going to come against you. They're going to fight you. They're going to argue. It's going to be really bad. It's going to be arguments and fights that break out because you preach the gospel. And this is what eventually happened to the early Christian church over the next 3 centuries. Everything was hidden underground. There were people trying to persecute and kill the early Christian church. So you get to see that's where there's that big shift and that big change. So what Jesus was doing, he's preparing everyone for what's going to happen next, right? What's going to happen next is not going to be the same as it was before. It's going to be a very, very difficult time, right? So before, don't take your purse, your bag, any of your cloak, whatever it is. Don't worry. It's like, hey, don't worry. It's kind of a regular time. But now it gets this bad. You got to take it all with you because no one's going to provide for you. No one's going to let you in their house. Not a single person, right? So we see that Jesus kind of preparing the disciples for what's ahead in the future. And if you really think about it too, it's kind of it's a very sad moment where Jesus is not just saying that I'm going to die tomorrow, but he also already sees what's in store for his disciples. So you got to imagine the Shimjung at that time is a very, very difficult time where it's not only he's worried about his life, but he's worried about his disciples' lives too. And he's like, even before, if you read above, Jesus even talks to Peter and says, hey, Peter, I know what's coming up ahead of you, and I'm praying for you so that you can be strong, so you can overcome it and start taking care of the sheep again, right? So Jesus, he's worried even about Peter, like, Peter, I know what's going to happen. And you got to know that you're going to need more strength, and I'm praying for you. So that's right above. We just read 35 to 38. Read just a couple verses above, and it's Jesus talking about how much he's praying for Peter too, right? So it is quite a solemn and sad moment for Jesus because he knows what's about to happen, not only to him, but also to the people he loves because of him, right? So that's kind of Luke chapter 22. Hope you guys take a look at that verse too. And I'm very grateful that a lot of you guys are asking questions about the Bible. It means you are inspired to start reading the Bible, which is a great thing too. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is Question and Answer Thursday. Hope you guys really enjoyed this. If you have any other questions, go ahead, keep leaving them in the comments and DM me, whatever it is. Definitely will get back to you on these ones too. All right? So then let's move into the second break for the day. All right, so let's get into the final segment for today. And of course, every single Thursday, I do have sermons in the sky. And I really like this section for myself because it kind of gives me an opportunity to, I guess, I'm not sure what the right words are, to hone my preaching skills. But, I do get a lot of inspirations here and there of the things that God inspires me. And this is really, really interesting because I was stuck. I was stuck with nothing to say today. I was like, man, what do I talk about? I have no idea what I should talk about. And, there was this week's scriptures about the 10 virgins. And interestingly, I got inspired by the parable after the 10 virgins, which is the parable of the bags of gold. All right. So let's start today's Sermons in the Sky. And it's going to be about the parable of the bags of gold. So Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30, it talks about the parable of the bags of gold. And what happens here is there's a master goes on his journey, leaves 5 bags of gold to one servant, 2 to another, and 1 bag for another servant. And after a long while, the master comes back to settle his accounts. And this is what really hit me. And it's just like right at the beginning of this, it just hit me at that moment. Is like, after a long while, the master comes back to settle his accounts. And when I think about this, it just inspired me and made me think about, even Sunsee's been gone for so long. And it feels even longer because of all the craziness that's happened. We haven't heard much about him. We don't really get these personal letters or anything else. And I thought to myself is this different than before? And I was like, yeah, it does feel a lot different. Like that first time when he was gone for 10 years, we had someone to right the ship. And it was still a very trusting time, even though it was crazy at that time too. And we still felt safe. We had that one person at the top. But now, it's so different. It's erratic, chaotic, uncertainty. There's no one person at the top that we had like before that we trusted. We're like, oh yes, it's gonna be okay. Yet there is one thing that has changed. And it's something that Sunseeing spoke about from like years back. And he said, you are grown up now. You are mature. And that is what has changed. You see, as a history, we've grown to a certain level spiritually. And we're adults now. Our history has become an adult. Now, although we're young adults, we're still adults in this history today. And the question that came to my mind was, what will happen to me when the master comes back from his journey and he comes to settle his accounts? After all the things that have happened this year, when everything settles, the master comes back, what position will you be in? Were you able to handle the situation well? Were you able to level up your faith? Were you able to do your mission more powerfully? Were you able to get things done and even help others? Or were you like that servant who buried their bag of gold? Did you just sit there waiting for an answer, doing nothing until the time came, waiting to see, is he guilty or innocent? Waiting to see, is it worth staying or leaving? That is what bearing the bag of gold is right now. When the master comes back, What will we have to show him? What can we say to him? Will you have the confidence to face him? Or will your head hang low and say, "Oh, I know you're a hard man, reaping what you do not sow"? Right now is that exact same time. And the master has gone away on a long journey, but he will come back. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, will you be confident? Will your head be lifted high? And will you sit at the master's table? What has to change right now is our hearts, our minds, our mentality. Everything we've done over the last 45 years has led to this point where we've gone through all the ups and downs. We've gone through the tribulations. We know exactly how this feels. This is the reality of our situation. Yes, it's not a normal situation, but all that training, all that stuff we went through over the last 45 years has led to this point. It's that same point where after all the training Jesus went through, his final battle, 40 days fasting in the desert, and at his weakest moment, when he had no energy, when he was so tired and hungry, Satan came to tempt him. And right now, did we go through the 40 days of fasting? Absolutely. Do you know what's crazy about our time right now is? Our 40 days of fasting was the 3 years of the pandemic where we're alone. We're stuck by ourselves. We're not sure exactly what to do. But we just sit there like, oh, what's going on? And the pandemic was our 40 days of fasting. It made life already that hard. Financial situations, countries, economies, finances, they're all going down. And just like at the end of the 40 days of fasting, Satan comes to tempt. And for us too, at the end of this pandemic, no one saw this coming. And we hit those temptations. And the question is, for each and every one of us, as the trusted servants, what are we going to do? Knowing that the master will come back from his long journey, what will we have to say to him? What can we give him? And I'm sure all of us want to hear those amazing words, right? What are those amazing words? And I know that this was in a sermon a while back too. And he says, what does he say? Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many. Come and share your master's happiness. And I hope that all of us too will reach that end point where we can hear these exact words from God. So yeah, it was crazy for me because this inspiration just came. I had no idea, even until the point I was about to start the recording. I have no idea what to talk about during the sermons in the sky. But, the Holy Spirit inspired me and helped me to see something I could not see before. And where did it come from? It came from the Bible. And I hope that all of us too will really look at our situations hard. Look at it hard and look at it deeply and say, what is it? What is it I'm doing next? It is a great time where the master's away, and as mature adults of this history, we have to be the ones where he says, yeah, good job. Well done. Come and share in your master's happiness. But in this case, it'll be the bridegroom. All right? I hope everyone really enjoyed that time of Sermons in the Sky. Everyone have an amazing and awesome day. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire.